Hello, welcome to a section of our Project Management Masterclass, where we take a look at questions and answers for the PMP exam. We're going to rapidly cover the basics of project management to get you immersed, to give you a quick refresh, and then we're going to go into people, process, and business at a very high level. This is a basic quiz for anyone who feels they are almost ready for the exam to test the firepower. Chapter 1 in the PMP Guide is all about the basics: projects, programs, and portfolios. Knowing the differences between each of these, understanding that programs must have at least 2 projects that are interrelated. Portfolios is a collection of projects, programs, operational work, other endeavors undertaken for the company's strategic business objectives. Understanding the different delivery approaches in project management. There's a section in the 6th edition that talks about project and development life cycles. So understanding what a project life cycle is and understanding what a development life cycle or delivery method is. Under development life cycles, we talk about predictive, iterative, incremental, and adaptive. Now, the coverage in the 6th edition is not the best. I would advise that you go to the Agile Practice Guide and check out page 19, where we have a table that breaks down the differences between each of these. And then understand that a project phase is different from a process group. Understand the different types of phase reviews. We use different names for these phase reviews. We could have milestones, kill points, phase exits, project go or no go. Understand the 49 processes, the 5 process groups, the 10 knowledge areas. Page 30 about the business case, page 33 about the benefits management plan, and reasons for authorizing a project should be understood. This will be helpful for your exam, even though it is not in the 6th edition, it is in the 7th edition. It's called a system for value delivery. I liken this system to an aquarium. In the aquarium, we have big boulders. We will call these portfolios. We have smaller rocks. We call them programs. And then we have pebbles. We could look at these as projects. All of these are meant to be part of the value delivery system. We have operational work. Think about operations as the lifeblood for the organization. This is the water in the aquarium. And then we have the outcomes. We have plans, we have benefits. Those benefits will be experienced by the inhabitants of the aquarium. Ultimately, we will be delivering value in that aquarium, and we could use any of these approaches: predictive, iterative, incremental, or agile. Again, the Agile Practice Guide, the correct page is 18, and table 3-1 breaks down the different approaches: predictive, iterative, incremental, and agile. There are a lot of topics on this exam, and one of the topics I would advise you to master is the concept of work performance data, work performance information, and work performance reports. Data comes from direct and managed project work. It goes into monitoring and controlling processes that are outside of integration, and those produce work performance information. That goes to monitor and control project work, and that produces work performance reports that furnish other processes, such as perform integrated change control, manage team, manage communications, and monitor risk. Ultimately, your work performance data can be looked at as raw observations, your work performance information, and analysis of the work performance data, and that is crystallized into a work performance report. This is your summarized work performance information. For your exam, be aware of the lingo: enterprise environmental factors, those factors external and internal that can affect your project, and OPAs, organizational process assets, processes and procedures, and the corporate knowledge base. So to put this in perspective, be aware of the 12 principles for project management as espoused by the PMI in the 7th edition I'm not advising you to read the entire 7th edition, but be aware of the philosophies in the 12 principles. I have a separate video that goes into each one of these, but at a high level, be a good steward, promote collaboration, think about engagement of the stakeholder, think about value first, deliver value constantly, think big systems think about the whole, not just a tiny little part. Think about leadership. The true measure of leadership is influence. When you lead, be a situational leader, be a servant leader. Tailor the processes. Whatever you're doing can be tailored. You don't need to use all 49 processes. You don't need to use all templates and tools. Think about quality, fitness for use, conformance to requirements, customer satisfaction. Be sure to navigate uncertainty. Think about risk. Think about being resilient, standing, even in the face of disaster or mishap on the project. Think about the importance of change at a project level, at an organizational level. Now, put these in perspective with the 5 process groups of initiating, planning, executing, monitoring, and controlling, and closing. Understand that all the knowledge areas, integration, scope, schedule, cost, quality, resources, communications, risk, procurement, and stakeholder are all important to give you the full value from a project. Not paying attention to any of these could be lethal, but you see risk is in the middle because all of these management approaches are really risk control mechanisms. The reason why we plan as much as we do is to ensure that the outcome is the best outcome possible. It's a risk reduction mechanism. So again, your 12 principles: be a diligent, respectful, and caring steward, create a collaborative project team environment, effectively engage with stakeholders, focus on value, recognize, evaluate, and respond to systems interactions, demonstrate leadership behaviors, tailor based on context, build quality into processes and deliverables, navigate complexity, optimize risk responses, embrace adaptability and resiliency, and enable change to achieve the envisioned future state. On top of this, be aware of your 49 processes. Understand what each of these does for you. The what's in it for me clause. What is in it for you if you develop a charter or if you develop a project management plan? Why should you do those things? That's the thinking for your exam. Now, I espouse the 80-20 principle or the 80-20 rule. In my mind, 80% of your output on a project comes from 20% of your processes. So if we take roughly 20% of these processes, which I've highlighted yellow, you could put these together to give you a line of best fit, as it were, to help you understand the PMP Guide better. I call this the PMP Guide Mainline. If you have not watched my more extensive video on it, please do, because you'll see how all these processes on the screen are interwoven. And this is roughly 20% of the processes in the PMP Guide. You do not need to cram every single process. Instead, you need to understand how they are interwoven at this macro level. The project charter leads into the project management plan, leads into executing. You get work performance data and deliverables that leads into controlling quality and monitoring and controlling processes in general. You verify that deliverable with the customer. Ultimately, that verified deliverable needs to go into validate scope, where the customer validates the scope, validates that indeed you built what they were looking for. That becomes an accepted deliverable, and ultimately you get a final product, service, or result transition. You get a final report. Now, the language in the PMP Guide is very specific, so when they mention certain process names, it is worth knowing exactly what they mean. I would advise you to look for my video, PMP Guide Mainline. Look it up, read it up, understand the big red mainline, the big green mainline. I covered these in the video. I don't show everything on the screen, but it's worth understanding. knowledge area by knowledge area, break down the essence of what you're doing. Here's an example of what I would advise you to do at a high level. Know all the processes in a knowledge area and what they do for you. And then on top of what they do for you, make it very specific with what each one gives you. Understand the major outputs that are talked about on page 89, what you get out of each process that is of relevance to the project management plan is on page 89, and the major documents on page 89 as well. Before your exam, also look for my video where I talk about the change request sequence, the sequence for change requests. A change comes verbally, but it must be put into formal writing, must go through a number of processes, as you can see on the screen. And ultimately, you're going to decide whether to approve, reject, put it on hold, or pending. I encourage you to search through the channel because you will find a treasure trove of information. Now, going back to the exam, a big piece of the exam is Scrum. Understanding the flow of Scrum, the process. Now, Scrum is a framework. It's not a methodology, but there is a method to it. While we do not call it a methodology, there's a configuration of 3-5-3, product owner, Scrum Master, and the team, 5 ceremonies, and 3 artifacts. The 5 ceremonies that we officially identify are sprint planning, the daily Scrum, the sprint itself, the sprint review, and the retrospective. And there's a non-official ceremony called backlog refinement, which is also very important, but not an official ceremony. Now we have covered at a very high level some of the details for the exam. Let's jump into quick questions for your exam that are very simple, straightforward, easy to read, no trickery, okay? This will be continued in another video, but before then, here's a question. We will continue the discussion in part 2.